Okay, calculus people, we were talking about first derivative graphs the other day. Now let's see if we can take a first derivative graph and sketch a function graph. So here we go. We're going to try this. I don't know if it'll work or not, but we're going to try. All right, so remember where the first derivative is negative, the function is decreasing. When the first derivative is negative below the x-axis, the function is decreasing. So, because it's decreasing, it's below the x-axis here, that means it's got to decrease until it gets to negative 5. So my function is decreasing until it gets to negative 5. Remember, it's the slope of the tangent line. When I get to negative 5, I got to have a bottom of my curve. It's got to have a minimum. So there's my bottom of my curve. Pretend that's on negative 5. Okay, so now this part of the graph says it's increasing, and it's still increasing until it gets to negative 1. At negative 1, it's got to be at 0 again. So it's going to increase until it gets to negative 1, where it has to be 0 again. Okay, at negative 3, that's where it kind of changes from getting steeper to not so steep. Okay, and now at negative 1, that's where it's got a 0, so that's why it's kind of flat there. And now here it's got a decrease. So now it's got a decrease, and it's going to continue to decrease forever. So that's one possible graph. It could, you could put lots of different possible graphs. Maybe it did this, where it came down and then it went up in here, and then it went down, something like that. It doesn't matter where it starts and stops. We have no idea. We just doing the shape, okay? We're not trying to find any zeros or anything else. So it's just the shape, okay? And then you say to yourself, does this make sense? Remember, this is a cubic. Y equals x to the third, blah, blah, blah. We don't really know exactly. And the derivative of y equals x to the third is an x squared. And is x squared this kind of graph? And you're like, oh yeah, that's right. So that must be correct. Well, even if it's not, we're going to say it is. Okay, so now I have this graph. This is the same. This is still a quadratic, so I'm going to end up with third degree over here. But now notice it's a little bit different. So here at the beginning, it's above the x-axis, so that means it's increasing until I get to 0 when it becomes 0. So over here, here's my 0, it's going to increase until I get to 0. I don't know exactly where, but I'll just stop there because that happens to look great. Now it's going to be decreasing, 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 back to 0 again. So now it's going to be decreasing, 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 back to 0 again. Over here, and now it's the derivative is above the x-axis. So now I'm going to come back over here, and it's going to be increase. Oops, I don't want a straight line. I want a curvy line. So then it increases. So it's another cubic. Notice it's a cubic. All right, it's fat, it's ugly, it's not very pretty. But it's what it is. Okay, so it's a cubic because it basically crosses the x-axis 3 times. So this is a y equals x to the third, and this is a y equals x squared, so that makes sense when you take the derivative. Okay, now here's a hard one. The derivative is a cubic, y equals x to the third. That must mean the function was a 4th power, y equals x to the 4th. All right, so this is going to be a W or an M shape, right? It's got to cross 4 times. So let's see what happens here with my derivative graph. My derivative graph is negative here, which means my function is going to be decreasing until it gets to negative 3. So it looks like my function is going to decrease until I get to negative 3, where it's going to have a minimum. And then it's going to increase, increase, increase until I get to negative 1. So it's going to increase, increase, increase until I get to negative 1. Now it's going to decrease, 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 decrease until I get to 1. So it's going to decrease, 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 decrease until I get to 1. And now anything to the right of 1, it has to be increasing. So now it's going to increase, increase, increase forever. And that's a W shape. You're like, oh yeah, that's an x to the 4th. Okay? All right, we'll do some more of these in the next video. Watch it again to see if it makes sense to you. You should be able to take either a function graph and make a derivative, or take a derivative graph and make a function. That's a skill you should be able to do. So we'll practice again next time. Next time I'll give you a function and you can give me the derivative. All right, adios.